Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Raptor Queens podcast, the first ever all-woman podcast covering the Toronto Raptors. My name is Sarah Khalil. I am joined today by my other Queens of the North, Jade Auxiliary Things Johnson, and our newest Raptor Queen, Angela Chan. Angela, I know this is your second podcast, but it's your first one with me, so I just want to say welcome to the team. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to join the Queens here and excited to talk hoops, excited about the upcoming season.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be excited about, I think. And so today, what we're going to cover all of the changes that have happened to the Raptors roster over the off season. We have preseason games coming up this week and regular season starting on December 23rd. So we're going to cover our predictions for the season. We've got quite a lot to talk about in terms of who's been added to the roster and who we lost. And then we're going to look around the league, which teams benefited over the offseason, which fell flat. And of course, there's some drama that we're going to need to address in the world of James Harden. So I'm excited. Let's get right into it and start with a summary of the changes to the Raptors roster. So the biggest re-signing is that Fred Vanvleet was re-signed to the Raptors. Jade, I don't think this was a surprise to you. What are your thoughts on this re-signing?
Yeah, definitely did not come as a surprise. I was pretty sure they were going to be able to get him to stay. There's a lot of rumblings that, people like the Knicks were going to offer him so much money that he was going to not turn it down. But I saw him on JJ Redick's podcast, and he said a line in there that I was like, there's no way he leaves for the Knicks. And I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, we know what some teams are. I don't have to explain it for us to know what they are. And followed that up with just kind of a comment of that made me think he's not going to just play anywhere because of the money. And I think the Knicks were really the only organization that might be able to offer him enough to leave. And he didn't.
But can you ever really offer enough to join the Knicks?
That's the thing, right? I mean, I think for some players you can, but I think Freddie's just way too smart for that. And so I wasn't surprised that he left. But I also think it was a smart signing on the side of Masai and Bobby Webster, because I think Freddie probably could have got more money. But I also think they knew he really wanted to stay. And so I think it's a friendlier contract for the Raptors than it might otherwise have been if our front office wasn't as savvy as they are. Plus, the structure of his contract is that he takes a pay cut next season, which presumably is to open cap space to make a play for Giannis. So all in all, I think it's a great contract. I'm super excited that he's staying, even though I'm not super surprised that he did.
Yeah, that was a very clever structure by the Raptors organization to bring down the salary in year two. Angela, what about you? Your thoughts on re-signing Fred, and what are you looking forward to most for him this season? What are you looking forward to seeing?
I'm looking forward to see if he improves his facilitating, and I'm excited to see some kind of growth from him and to see if he takes a bigger role, and maybe he'll have more of a voice in the locker room as well. Also, it was really cool that this was the largest contract ever for an undrafted player, so good for him.
Yeah, that's absolutely what a win for Freddie. And yeah, I'm also looking forward to see what he learns from Lowry this year. I think we saw some of his limitations and maybe inexperience in terms of facilitating plays in the Boston series of the playoffs last year. So it'll be fun to watch him grow. Totally agree. Okay, let's move on to some other big changes to the roster. Both Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol left for LA. Different teams. Marc went to the LA Lakers. Serge went to the LA Clippers, which I definitely had some feelings about. All right, let's start with you, Angela, this time. What were your thoughts on the loss of Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka? We did not have another center signed at the time when they left.
I was shocked that they didn't retain like even one of them. Like I thought they would have retained Serge and maybe overpaid him for a year to maintain cap space for the following offseason. Yeah, and Kawhi just kind of, snuck in there in the middle of the night there and snatched Serge from us. Yeah, so with Kawhi and Serge, like, my theory is this. I think Serge made Kawhi more relatable to the rest of the Raptors when Kawhi was on the team. That makes sense. I think Serge became the team's conduit into Kawhi, and he made him more approachable and relatable to everyone else. And like, Serge obviously has a tremendous impact on the court, but I also don't think it can be understated his impact on team chemistry. And I think that's really going to help the Clippers. And I'm torn because I'm obviously not rooting for the Clippers to regain their footing and their status as a contender, but I'm obviously a fan of Serge and I want to see him do well. And the barometer for his impact is not just, getting the rebounds, the boards, and the points, but his impact on team chemistry. And, that was clearly an issue for the Clippers last season. So that was a really good signing for them. Quite a
You're
shock.
making me sad.
I know.
As you're talking about all of what Serge brings, it's just breaking my heart. I might need you to stop.
I know. Yeah. And all we get, left behind as souvenirs are those scarves, because obviously he's not going to wear them in LA. And, you're obviously wondering, is he going to revive How Hungry Are You? And like, who's he going to have on as a guest? Is it going to be Patrick Beverley? And I mean, if he has Pat Bev as a guest, I'd like to suggest just giving him straight decaf, the whole time. He's just, or maybe some tranquilizer. I don't know. I'm being kind of facetious because, what's most irritating about Pat Bev is what gets him paid. It's why you want him on the team. But I'm still excited to follow Serge and his journey on the Clippers.
That was some spicy spice that you just sprinkled all over this podcast. That was great. Thanks for all of that commentary. Jade, what did you think about the loss of Mark and Serge?
So Mark, I wasn't so heartbroken about. I think Mark, we've seen the best of Marc Gasol. I don't think he's ever going to be that Marc Gasol again. I already wasn't going to be heartbroken if we lost him. But when I saw the Woj bomb that Serge left, like, this seems odd to me to say, but I almost felt like I had been broken up with or something. Like, I had legit feels. I was upset for hours and I'm like, why do I feel this way? I've never felt this way before. But like, my mom also has like a mad crush on Serge. So I think I was probably like feeling some of that too, because I saw her today actually and we talked about it for the first time. She's like, I'm so upset. I'm like, I know, I knew you would be. To Angela's point, brilliant move by the Clippers. Like, they absolutely needed this. And I would even argue that what he's going to bring off the court in terms of that friendship with Kawhi is going to be more important than anything he does on the court. But I will say this about Kawhi. Kawhi found my line. I didn't care that he left after the year because he said up front it's going to be a year. We'll see what happens. Everyone knew he wanted to play at home. Coming out of San Antonio, I did research on the situation there before he came, and I felt like, yeah, Kawhi was done wrong by his team. I would want to trade too. And then he went to LA and didn't have the season he expected. And I don't think I took quite as much pleasure from that as a lot of Raptors fans did. I was a little bit indifferent to it. But stealing Serge is over the line for me. Now Kawhi has upset me. All the other stuff that he did, I was like, whatevs. It doesn't matter. But now I'm like, no. Like, you're on my list now, Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, I don't know if it crossed a line for me. I'm just all over. By all over, I mean just over it. I'm just over Kawhi, over that whole thing. But I have to say, it felt like the same shock when I saw the news that Serge went to the Clippers. I was like, really? Like, just shocked. Couldn't believe that happened. And I had a really similar feeling when Kawhi signed with the Clippers. I was like, are you kidding? I felt like a repeat experience. Okay, let's talk about the replacements that came on board. So first of all, the Raptors did re-sign Chris Boucher, and they also brought on Aaron Baines and Alex Lenz, all big men. So what are your thoughts? Jane, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the replacement big men this season?
So I'll start with Chris, since he is a returning big man. Great. I'm so happy for him. It's a super team-friendly contract, but for his situation to get the couple of years, and I think it was $13 million, so happy for him. And he's such a nice kid. Like, I don't know how many Raptors fans know this, but his mom kicked him out over a man when he was 16. And when he had his media availability after he signed that, he's still saying, I just want to take care of my mom. Like, I don't know if I could do that. And so it's just one more character guy on the Raptors. We know that's an important thing to the front office, and Chris Boucher has it in spades. I hope his three-point shooting is able to get a little bit more consistent, because we're really going to miss that, I think, from Serge. I think with Baines and Lenz, I don't know much about Lenz, but I think with Baines, we're going to be seeing more traditional big man role. I don't think he spaces the floor quite as well as Serge did. He's more of a post player from what I know of him. It'll be interesting to see if he is another big man that adds a three, because we've had a few, come through and do that. He didn't have a three, and he did when he left. Marc Gasol took more threes. Serge took more threes. So maybe that will be part of the Raptors' development of him. But I think Nick Nurse is going to be in his element once again, working out what the best strategies are for these new guys, because they are going to have to be different than the guys that we lost.
I think you're right. I don't think there's any chance that they're a direct replacement for the skill set and ability that Serge and Mark brought. Angela, what about you? Have you seen a lot of either of these players, and what are you imagining might happen with these two new men?
I think the Raptors did pretty well in finding the replacement bigs, given what was available on the market. And these are pretty team-friendly deals. Like with Aaron Baines, the second year is a team option, I believe. And Alex Len, it's 1 year, about $2 million. And of course, they won't be a direct replacement for Mark and for Serge. But Aaron Baines, he's a good floor spacer. He's also, supposedly quite a good teammate. That's what I heard about him in Phoenix. And I was watching Alex Len's media day press conference, and he was talking about how excited he was to be here. And it didn't just sound like a platitude. It sounded like he said it with some conviction, and he was quite honest about how he's only ever played on losing teams, and that coming to the Raptors, this is his first time being, with a really good organization, and this is a great opportunity for him. And, the Raptors are known for their development. So I'm excited that he's excited. And both Baines and Len, obviously, they serve a position of need, but I think picking them, it's also consistent with the Raptors culture of wanting to bring high character guys into the fold, so to speak, selfless, focused on defense. They embrace their role and, want to get better. So I think they did well on that front, and with the contracts too.
Okay, great. So let's look then at the roster overall. So as we know, we've got OG on the team. Kyle Lowry's still with us. Chris Boucher, we already covered. Aaron, DeAndre Bembe was re-signed. Matt Thomas, three-point shooter extraordinaire. I'm jumping on that bandwagon so hard. He's with us. Pascal Siakam, Norman Powell. So who do you guys think is going to be our starting lineup? This is just, we're moving into some predictions here, but who do you think will be the starting lineup? Angela, let's start with you.
I mean, that's always hard to say, because Nick Nurse likes to keep us on our toes, and he likes to keep it unpredictable. I mean, even though I was just talking about the traditional bigs, the new ones that the Raptors brought in, I actually think we might be seeing some of OG as a small ball 5. I think in small sample sizes, he actually acquitted himself quite well. And compared to the other small ball 5s available, Siakam and Boucher, and, you know, all three are great defenders, but OG is obviously going to be the strongest. And he looked quite comfortable in that role in the small sample sizes I did see him there. So I think that's a possibility. Maybe a more traditional starting lineup would be Lowry, Vanvleet, OG, Siakam, and Aaron Baines. He's in Phoenix. He kind of split his time starting and also coming off the bench. Obviously, you know, there was that suspension to DeAndre Ayton earlier on the year, and that pushed him into that starting role, and he played more minutes. So I think he'd be comfortable starting as well as coming off the bench.
If OG is starting at the 5 or a small ball center, who else do you have on the starting lineup?
Well, I think that brings
Do you put Norm?
the question of, yeah, I was just about to say, I'm not sure about his situation and whether he's going to remain on the team, but he is. Yeah, I think it might be him.
Okay. Jade, what are your thoughts?
I don't see Norm starting, but, you know, I have my Norm thing. I expect Norm to be traded by the deadline, honestly. I don't think he's going to be a Raptor after the trade deadline. For my starting lineup, I see Kyle, Freddie, Pascal, OG, and Aaron Baines as kind of the go-to starting lineup. I think there are guys who, especially the first 4, Kyle, Fred, Pascal, and OG, they've played together for a long time. They have a chemistry, they have an understanding of each other that is, I think, really important in a starting lineup. And just switching out that 5 spot with Baines it's an easy go-to. And I think, especially at the beginning of the season, while Nick Nurse is assessing everybody's abilities and chemistry and all of that kind of stuff, it makes sense to stick with a lineup that is a known quantity as much as we're able to do.
Okay, great. And then one more question before we move into our front office discussion. Which player are you looking forward to watching the most this season? Jade, go ahead.
Sorry.
For me, it is OG. OG's my guy. I'm waiting patiently in the mail for my throwback OG jersey because I must be the only podcaster in the world that doesn't have a team jersey. So I finally pulled the trigger and I bought one, and it might even be here tomorrow. So I'm super excited about that. I think he's going to take big steps again this season. I don't think we've seen his peak with his offensive efficiency. And I hope, and I'm going to call that he's going to be at least in the conversation for an all defensive team nod for this season.
Fantastic. Angela?
Because Jade already said OG, I'm going to say Paul Watson Jr. So we did hear from Rico Hines a few months ago, I believe, that he's the next guy that's on track to make a big leap on the Raptors. And, you know, he fared very well in the 905. And with the Raptors development, I'm excited to see what he can bring and if he's going to have maybe more of a permanent spot on the second unit rather than the third unit.
Okay, great. So you guys both picked my top 2, so I'll go with the third one. I am very much looking forward to seeing Pascal Siakam rebound from his performance in the bubble. I have no concerns about his performance this season. I think he's going to be fantastic, at least back to what we saw before, if not significantly better and with an edge and something to prove. So yeah, I do look forward to seeing Pascal's game. All right, let's move on then to front office contracts. As we know, Bobby Webster has not re-signed his contract, and neither has Masai Ujiri. You guys, what do you make of that? Whoever wants to go first, just jump right in.
I think that I am not as concerned as maybe some Raptors fans are. I think because we are still dealing with an NBA season in the era of COVID, there's just bigger things to figure out right now. And Bobby and Masai are just such professionals that their concern is getting their job done, not signing their contract right now. As we go into training camp, the Raptors end up having to relocate for the season, which it never occurred to me until they actually started talking about it. Oh yeah, it doesn't make sense for them to play in Toronto this year. So I just think that there are so many moving parts that would not usually be happening at the beginning of a season, that they're just focused in on the team. And that's the kind of thing that you want in your front office, right? Right to the very end, even if they don't resign, their first priority is making sure they do their job at a high level with a high level of excellence. If they decide to leave, they've already decided to leave, I think, because I think MLSE is going to offer them whatever they want to stay. They would be insane not to.
Okay. Angela?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Masai's media day press conference or a different press conference, he kind of confirmed that Bobby's contract was taken care of, even though we don't have official news on that yet. Yeah, so I think Bobby's contract, that'll be figured out soon enough, and be hearing about Masai soon enough. And I didn't really know what to make of their stock response whenever Bobby and Masai were asked, about the status of their contracts. They often would say, like, they're working on the players' contracts first, they want to work on finalizing the staff contracts first, and they don't want this to be a distraction. And on the one hand, it seemed like a typical dodge, and on the other hand, I agree with Jade, it's totally conceivable that they just have so much on their plate, and the offseason is such a busy time of year for a front office, and probably more so for the Raptors having to sort out all the new logistics of moving to this new location. So, yeah, I'm hoping that we'll hear some news from them soon confirming that they've re-signed them.
Plus, the off season was so short.
Yeah.
So short. They usually have a lot more time to get everything done that needs to get done in a regular off season, and then the COVID stuff and the relocation stuff on top of it.
Okay, you both make good points. I might just like the drama of it all, so I'm like, ooh, they haven't signed yet. It probably means something. But that's just probably because not only am I a Raptor queen, I'm a drama queen. Haha. Okay, let's move into our predictions for the season. Let's do, you can do a prediction about the Raptors record if you want, but mostly I'm looking for just an obvious prediction and a maybe wild prediction or an unexpected thing. Jade, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start with the obvious prediction. The obvious prediction is the US media are going to underestimate the Raptors, and everyone's going to be surprised about their record. It's a good standby. It's constantly frustrating. So I'm just going to go with that. If it ain't broke, right? For a wild prediction, this one's hard for me because I'm kind of an expect anything type of person. Not a ton surprises me. But I'm going to say, so since they're having all-star voting, even though they're not having an all-star game, I'm going to say we get 2 all-star nods this season from our current roster.
Who do you think they'll be?
I think they're going to be Pascal again and Freddie.
Okay, let's see what happens. Angela, I'm going to go next, and then we're going over to you. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. My kind of obvious prediction, perhaps, and I don't know, maybe it's only obvious because I'm a Raptors fan, but I think that OG does get an all-defensive team nod, and I don't actually think that's a wild prediction. I think it should just be an obvious one, so I'm going for that one. And then my wild prediction is that we trade Kyle Lowry in exchange for big assets, because there's going to be a contending team who's in need of a fantastic point guard, and they're going to want Kyle Lowry, and we are going to get a lot from him, and it will be heartbreaking. Please don't.
My heart is breaking.
It's a good thing Allison's not here, because she's going to be so upset when she hears this. She might kick me off the podcast. I don't think that we have any one person that can do that, but she might. So.
I'm having all kinds of feels right now just thinking about it. And it's odd because I already don't think Kyle's going to be a Raptor next season, but my thought was that he would at least make it through the season and not be traded and then leave in free agency again. So yeah, I'm going to have to work through some stuff on that take there, Sarah.
I know. I mean, I don't like it as a take, but it kind of makes sense. You could get so much for Kyle for if you send him to a team that was like actually a contender this year instead of just losing him in free agency, and give him another chance to win another championship, which he would also like. Anyway, I don't like it as a prediction, but that's my wild one. Okay, Angela, over to you.
Well, speaking of Lowry, I think he's going to have another age-defying year, and I could see him, even at his age, leading the league in charges and taking charges at the All-Star game or preseason games and crazy things like that. I think OG might be a most improved candidate, might at least be in the conversation. And my wild take, and this is going to really anger the Matt Thomas as the second coming of Steph Curry crowd. But my wild take is that Aaron Baines will make more threes than Matt Thomas. Not necessarily more efficiently, but will make more. Okay.
Oh, that's so funny.
And maybe it's not as wild of a take as it sounds, because in my think, I don't know how many more minutes that Matt Thomas will get. I'm presuming Aaron Baines will get more minutes, and he averaged about 4 attempts per game last year on Phoenix. He may not be as efficient as Matt Thomas, but I think he might make more.
It's definitely wild because I'm speechless and that does not happen to me.
I have to say the number of times my jaw has just hit the floor listening to your takes, Angela, is a lot. So that's another time when that happened. That being said, I did actively decide that for my own amusement this year, I am jumping on the Matt Thomas train. Like, I'm just going for it, and that he's second coming of Steph Curry. But mostly that's for my own amusement, not because I actually believe it.
I think he's going to be better maybe than people think. I think people forget that he was a rookie last season for the NBA.
Right.
And yeah, he had a professional career overseas, but the NBA is different. It's a different pace. It's a different level of competition. It's a different game to get used to. So I think kind of remembering that opens things up to say he has room to measurably improve over what he was able to do last season.
So sorry, you two see him as
muted for a moment. Sorry, I was just staying muted. Go ahead, Angela. Okay. You can respond.
So do you two see him as more of a fixture, like more of a permanent fixture in the second unit then than in the third unit for next year?
Yeah, definitely second unit for me.
Okay.
Okay, well, we shall see, and we'll see soon enough because we got some preseason games coming up. But before we get into our predictions for the preseason, let's move into some discussions for what's going on around the league. And let's start with some drama because we can. And let's talk about James Harden. Mr. James Harden of the Houston Rockets did not show up for any team practices and instead was found in various clubs where people don't wear a lot of clothing typically. Anyway, so that's where he was doing his thing, and he is demanded a trade over the season, wants to be traded to a contender. And that's what's kind of going on. Lots of chatter about who he should be traded to. People wondering, maybe we should bring him over to the Raptors. That's an interesting conversation. Jade is shaking her head. Absolutely not. Jade, you clearly have an opinion about Mr. Harden. Go for it.
So my overall opinion on James Harden is, yay, he scores lots of points, but his game is fundamentally flawed. He does not have a game that's going to win a ring because he does not engage his teammates. And your all-star player, your key player, has to be able to make your team better to win rings if he's going to be your offensive leader. It doesn't work any other way. I don't want him on the Raptors because he is the kind of star that feels like he needs to run the team. He's not equipped to run a team like the Raptors. He doesn't have the character for the Raptors. Just no. Like, no. I would quit the Raptors if James Harden came. I'm not even kidding. Like, I can't do that. And I say that because I trust Masai so much that he would never do it anyways. Like, that is not a move Masai Ujiri is ever making because he's too smart for that. There's no way he doesn't see the flaws in James Harden's game and character. Not that I think James Harden's a bad guy, but his character is below what the Raptors recruit for. None of the guys that we have would bring the kind of drama that Harden is bringing to Houston right now, even if they were unhappy, even if they had asked for a trade. They are consummate professionals. They would still go out and do their jobs. They would be showing up for the team things. Like, even now, yeah, he's with the team now, but he still has to test negative 6 consecutive days before he can work out with the team. And we are a week away from preseason games. So he's just causing trouble because he's unhappy, and that's what superstars do. And I understand why he's upset with Houston. I have a colleague who is a Houston fan who has explained some things, and yeah, the organization failed him to have a James Harden, a perennial MVP candidate, and insist on staying under the cap is not good management. Spend the money, keep him happy, and keep him there. Houston's going to be in for an interesting season because he is not a happy camper, and nobody wants to talk about it in media availability for Houston. Everyone's just like, ask him when he gets here, or I'm here to talk about me. PJ Tucker looked so angry in his media availability. I've never seen PJ Tucker. Like, PJ Tucker is one of the chillest, friendliest, smilingest guys in the NBA, and he looked so mad. So I'm super interested to see how it shakes out. There are still rumors that they might make a trade with the 76ers as recently as yesterday. I can't even make a prediction of what's gonna happen, but it's gonna be entertaining to watch, that's for sure.
How do you think this compares to when Scottie Pippen was upset with the Chicago Bulls and sat out for half a season? They just like refused to play. Do you think that James Harden has the same kind of like Scottie Pippen-ish clout?
I think arguably Harden has more. I mean, Pippen was never the leader of the team, and Harden has unquestionably been the leader that they've kept trying to switch pieces in and out to make it work and haven't been successful. So yeah, I would say, like, I will never say that I think a player has the right because they make too much money and they signed a contract. So do your job. I don't have a lot of sympathy for that. But I understand why he's upset, and I think he has more cause to be vocally upset than Pippen would have had.
Okay. Angela, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
I think Jade articulated them better than I could have done.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, then let's move to another, I don't know if it's drama per se, it's just like a very botched series of events for the Milwaukee Bucks in an attempt to sign a superstar, I suppose, to play with Giannis in the hopes of winning a championship. There was a rumor that they had secured through a series of trades, etc. Bogdanovic. Is that his name? Bogdanovic? Okay. I didn't know that, actually. Okay. And then it came out that actually was never on the table. That was not going to happen at all. And it did not look good for the Bucks. It was a really bad look for their management. And what we do know is that at this point, Giannis has not re-signed for the max. And it's not looking good. Just today, he's used the infamous line, "I'm not really focused on my contract right now. I'm focused on me and my agents dealing with it." And it just doesn't look good. looks great for the Raptors, but it does not look good for the Bucks. Angela, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it just looked very amateurish and very unprofessional. You wonder who leaked that to the media. And even if there was something that was underway, obviously they couldn't say it, a few days before free agency. They would have violated the tampering rules. But even though that was so botched, like the Bucks still managed to get Drew Holiday, and he was a big kahuna. He was the belle of the ball. A lot of teams were after him, and they did well there. Like the narrative would have been quite different if they'd been inversed. Okay, they had this botched Bogdanovich trade or sign and trade that was supposed to happen, and then they landed Drew Holiday. But yeah, I can't say it was a complete failure for them in free agency or with trades, because they did manage to get Holiday. They got DJ Augustine, which is a good backup point guard. They got Bryn Forbes from San Antonio, who's going to be a good floor spacer for them. But yeah, this is good for the Raptors, the bad PR for the Bucks. So I'm living for that. Yeah.
For me, I think it was absolutely a failure for the Bucks. Not so much in terms of this season, but it's kind of the cherry on the top of what has been a failure of their front office the entire time they've had Giannis. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you don't spend over the luxury tax until the last possible moment. You have a coach that does not make adjustments, and you don't give yourself a season to see what you can do with a different coach before Giannis is going to get ready to leave. I think this is Mike Budenholzer's Dwayne Casey moment. The Raptors built a team for Dwayne Casey based on his coaching style and what he wanted to do, and he didn't get it done, so they moved on. This is what the Bucks should have done last season. Or in the offseason, Mike Budenholzer should have been fired so that they could bring in a coach with more flexibility, because he is the same kind of old school coaching style as Dwayne Casey. Dwayne Casey's coaching style was, well, I have a system, and if we're not winning, it's because the system is not being executed properly. And I see Budenholzer the same way. So that, combined with the fact that they didn't get Bogdanovich, they definitely added pieces. I don't think they got enough better to make up for the lack of coaching that I see on the Bucks. If they had got Bogdanovich, I would be saying differently. I think he's a really underrated player that's going to be on people's radar a lot in the next couple of seasons. I absolutely love his game, but I think they needed him to be enough better in their talent to make up for the lack of creativity on their coaching staff.
Have you ever thought of becoming not just a Raptor queen, but the queen of the world?
Yes, all the time.
I just feel like you speak with such authority, and that you've really got it figured out, and you know exactly what should happen in every situation. So, yeah, it's just wondering if you've ever thought about it. All right. Well, let's wrap up this podcast with some predictions for the preseason. So not that the preseason matters, this is truly just for fun, but we have the Raptors playing against the Hornets on the first preseason game this Saturday, September 12th, and then the Hornets again on Monday, and then the Miami Heat on next Friday, the 18th, and that is the last of the preseason games. So what do you think, wins or losses? Angela, go ahead.
I predict that they'll win 2 out of 3. They'll beat the Hornets back to back. Yep.
Okay, great. Jade?
I am gonna say we go 3-0. I want to start the season off on an optimistic step. So I'm gonna say we take all 3 games.
Okay. I don't know why I feel like just being ornery. I'm going to go with 1 and 2. Not because I think the Raptors shouldn't win these games or that they're not good. Just to think no one cares more than normal in a preseason. I don't know why. Like, people might be excited, like, basketball's back. I just feel like this really just doesn't matter. And that energy is just permeating. But maybe that's just me having an existential crisis.
I think there's probably something to that because there is a lot of stuff going on in the world still that wasn't going on the last time we were playing preseason games or the time before that. So yeah, I can roll with that. I can see that.
All right. Well, we have the best chance of at least one of us being right. The only way that not one of us is right is if we win 0 Don't see that happening. So at some point, we will be able to say the Raptor Queens make accurate predictions about preseason games. And it will be an important thing about us. All right. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to our preseason Raptor Queens pod. This is season 2 of the Raptor Queens. Thank you for joining us. It is wonderful to be back. We've got some fun basketball to be watching this season. Go Raptors, go. Stay Raptors fans. All those good things. And we'll check ya after the next few games. Bye.